Hi, I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kate, and you're listening to One Lump or Two,
The boldest breast cancer podcast yet.
Join us each week as we offer an intimate glimpse into the challenges and triumphs of facing breast cancer head-on in our 30s.
In Series 2, we're going to be joined by you, our listeners, and some experts in the field to help us all feel a little less alone and a lot more informed.
Now, let's pull back that curtain and dive in. Hello, and welcome back to One Lump or Two. Today we've got a really inspiring episode for you. We're talking to Breast Cancer Now. Breast Cancer Now would like to be recognised as the place to turn for information and support on everything to do with breast cancer, as well as the driving force behind breakthroughs in prevention, detection, treatment, and just well known for all the support that they offer. And I have used their services before. I've used a number of their services before. They've had a really positive impact on my life, and I could just sing their praises from the rooftops. So today we talked to Vic, who is a clinical nurse specialist. She used to practice in medicine and now works with Breast Cancer Now.
Hello, Vic. Welcome to One Lump or Two. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. And on behalf of Breast Cancer Now, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So just to kick us off, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your role at Breast Cancer Now?
Well, it would be a pleasure. So I joined Breast Cancer Now a couple of years ago. I first started working on the helpline and Ask Our Nurse service, and then I got a permanent post about 18 months ago as their clinical nurse specialist for younger women. So, like I said, I've been with the charity about 18 months and absolutely love it. It's a great role and a huge privilege to be working for Breast Cancer Now.
What does a clinical nurse specialist do? What do those words mean?
Oh, that's a good question. So I guess it means fundamentally clinical nurse specialists are nurses, but they have a special interest. So say, for example, you may have a clinical nurse specialist in breast cancer, a clinical nurse specialist in bowel cancer. So it just means that you're a specialist nurse, and clinical, meaning that you're sort of in practice to support people with issues related to practice and care, really.
So you're in safe hands when you're speaking to one. Just what everyone likes to hear.
I'd like to think so. I would like to think so. I've got to say, there's a lot of training that goes into the role, a lot of specialist training. So, it's always been hard work. I've been a clinical nurse specialist in practice as well. I was a clinical nurse specialist, breast cancer nurse. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of training involved. So,
how did you go from doing that in practice to then working with Breast Cancer Now?
Well, my career's been it spans quite some time and many specialities. So I think I've always had a keen interest in how I can improve and better myself and look at new opportunities. So when I was working as a clinical nurse specialist in breast cancer in actual practice within the NHS, I worked 4 days a week. And through my links through the Younger Women's Champion Nurses group that's run by Breast Cancer Now, there was an opportunity to become a sessional nurse at Breast Cancer Now, which it's sort of like a 0 hours contract. So I did that for 1 day a week together with my clinical work. And then from that, an opportunity came to work full time as a clinical nurse specialist just for Breast Cancer Now. So I jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah, it seems like such a great charity to work for.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I think because it's got so many aspects to it, the research and the support, I think, when I was in practice, if I wanted to do an after treatment group or something like that, I would find the venue, I would find the speakers. But now at Breast Cancer Now, there's a whole team that do a lot of that behind the scenes. So the teamwork is just incredible. So, yeah.
I don't know about Shelley, but I have used Breast Cancer Now's services. You were my go-to almost throughout my treatment. And after treatment, I did the Moving Forward course that you guys put on, and I found that really helpful, actually. Yeah. And it put me in contact with a lot of people who I was the youngest in the room, which to some extent I was expecting, even though there are quite a lot of young women that obviously go through this. It put me in contact with people who were more closer in my age than the people I had crossed paths with, except Shelley. She's special. And then I crossed paths with, like, at the hospital or in waiting rooms or things like that. So as well as like gaining everything I gained from that course, I gained a lot from those people. And there's some of them that I'm still in contact with, and that I still talk to. And I just think that in itself, even if I took nothing else away from it, that is just amazing. So when you put on top of it all this other support you offer, all the research that is also done, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And we hear from many people that have gone through a diagnosis of breast cancer, and they often describe it as being on a roller coaster ride, that build up to biopsies or diagnosis. And then often they describe it as being on this roller coaster, holding on tight, waiting for the next twist and turn, not quite knowing when that ride is going to end. And it's often when treatment finishes, when they get off that proverbial roller coaster ride and think, oh my goodness, what was that all about? And often that's a time where people around them are thinking, oh great, treatment's over, let's get on back to normal. And people are often thinking, I have no idea what normal is, and actually I just don't know who I am, where I'm going. So I think the Moving Forward course is so pivotal in being with people that understand, because often it's at a time where you've previously been immersed in hospital appointments or being around people, and then you're discharged, and it can be a very, very isolating time. And to be with people that have lived that experience, albeit in different forms, is just so important. And as a clinical nurse specialist, we attend the Moving Forward courses. We do a Q&A session, and I can see exactly what you mean, Kate, about how people connect and share together and get that sense of understanding and belonging.
We've talked about it before, that you come out of your active treatment and a bomb has essentially just gone off in your life, and you're just surrounded with your life in tatters. And how do you even begin to put yourself and your family and your work life and all of that like back into something normal? Because like the shape of your life and the shape that you take has just completely changed, and you've got to get all these bits back in. And it was really nice, certainly on that course, to, even though I think to be told that like this is going to take as long as it takes, and there is no right or wrong way to do this. And more importantly, that you're there through every step of the way. Like, even if I think I'm doing fine now, and in 6 months to 12 months time, I'm not feeling that way, I can still reach back out to you guys, and you're still there. It's not just you've done this one thing with us and now you're on your own. And because it is a roller coaster, it is up and down, and there are days where even when you're out of the thick of it and you've been fine for months, and then suddenly you'll just have a day where you're like, I'm angry at the world again, I hate that I've been through this, I don't really know how to process these emotions because it's the first time I've felt them in a long time. And it can be really hard to know what to do on that day sometimes, and that's where things like this are so important.
Yeah, and we know that many people are living either with breast cancer or beyond a breast cancer diagnosis. And at Breast Cancer Now, we understand that, and we have a helpline of our specialist nurses, and we have trusted health information packages and other support services that help people that have been diagnosed with a breast cancer or are living with breast cancer. But also, Kate, it's for their loved ones as well. So, and like you say, we don't have a time limit on it. Our Someone Like Me, our peer support service, people can link in with that. And it's just so valuable because there's not a time scale on it, is it, Kate? Where you say, oh, right, in 6 months, I'll feel better, cancer and it will all be, everything will be fine. It doesn't quite work like that. And so at Breast Cancer Now, we're here for you, whatever stage you're at, be it years after your diagnosis, and because we get it.
I think that's going to ring true for like probably most, if not all, people who are listening that have had a cancer diagnosis, because I think for me it was the worst part was when everything was over. Because at least when you're going through it, you've got like some sort of plan. And then when you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's over, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. So I think like if people don't already know about your courses and the services that you offer, I think that's going to be so helpful for everyone listening that is going through this.
Absolutely. And, Shelley, when breast cancer treatment has finished, it doesn't necessarily mean that the side effects have finished or the emotional impact have finished, and many people may be on endocrine treatment, for quite some time, or have lasting effects of chemotherapy. They may have challenges with body image, relationships, communication. It's just, yet it's interesting what you say, isn't it? Because when your treatment finishes, there's a perception, oh, this is great, brilliant. But actually it can be really hard. And then people can feel guilty that they're not sort of more joyous about it, and also cross and angry that people don't quite understand, which is why I think, at Breast Cancer Now, particularly having the tailored support for younger women is just so vital.
You said you did the course. What was it? The follow
moving
forward. Sorry. But you said you were the youngest person in the room. So now you do have a support network specifically for young women.
Yes, so we do. At Breast Cancer Now, we say sort of class younger women, sort of 18, 20 to 45. There's not many women under the age of 20 that would be diagnosed, but we would, if anyone was 18 or 19, we would support them as well. Obviously, it's very rare that. But we know that for younger women with a diagnosis of breast cancer, they're often at a time in their lives where they may be thinking about having fertility, forming relationships, all those, I say, thinking about careers as well. So that's why the services have been put together specifically for younger women to help them feel less isolated. So we have our Younger Women Together events. So they're events that are held face-to-face throughout the UK. We have several events in London. They're a one-day event. And then elsewhere throughout the country is generally a two-day event. And it's the most wonderful opportunity for younger women to come together, share their experiences, hear from expert speakers. And it's a real privilege to be a part of that. Obviously, it's a team effort, of course, but, to see women attending that, and quite often they look like rabbits in the headlights, quite apprehensive about what this 2-day or 1-day event might be. But when you feel the energy and the buzz in the room of these younger women, and the relief that they've actually got someone, who understands, and it's really quite incredible and really very powerful.
Yeah.
And we've also got our online events, Younger Women Together Online, which is a 4-week course. So it's a similar program to the face-to-face events. And even though it's online, the connection, between the women is really very special.
Because I know for me, one of the reasons I don't put myself forward for things like this is I get quite anxious sometimes when I don't know things. I'm getting much better at not being like that this side of cancer. But for anyone that might be a bit worried about what that kind of support would look like, and therefore apprehensive about stepping forward to take you up on that, what does it look like?
And you're not alone in feeling like that. It's a big deal, isn't it? Being in a room with people that you haven't met before. But I would assure anyone of the warmest welcome. So we always have a clinical nurse specialist, maybe one or two. We have our services team that sort of facilitate the event. We also have volunteers who have been through a breast cancer diagnosis themselves, so they really understand what it's like. So when you come, you're welcome. There's a register, and then what we do is we go into what we call connect and share, and it's a really lovely an hour and a half spent just with everyone having the opportunity, if they want to tell their story, and it's then you hear people say, oh, yes, that happened to me. Oh, yes, I had that. And so that's where it begins. And you often feel just in that hour and a half of that session that anxiety sort of dampens, and the camaraderie and friendship in the room is really beginning to form. And then what will happen is everyone has lunch together, and then we have guest speakers, or we call them breakout rooms. So we may have a session on menopausal symptoms, have a session on fertility, sex and relationships, communication. And we often have a session, it's called Coping with Change. So it's from maybe a psychologist or someone like that, and that really helps people to look at everything that you said about that moving forwards, that moving on. How do you cope in life with this huge change? So we have a speaker there, and often we have an innovative speaker as well. So someone who's been through a diagnosis of breast cancer, has come out the other side, and has been quite an inspiration in the work that they do. So it's very relaxed, it's very informal, and there's lots of support there.
It sounds wonderful.
It does, yeah.
It really is. I know I'm a little bit biased, but it is.
But there's no better feeling than like finding someone and saying something that you've been through, or like someone else saying something they've been through, and then you going, oh my God, me too. Like I thought it was just me.
Exactly.
Like with Shelley and I think maybe like the second or third time I think we'd hung out just after we'd met, we were just sat on a park bench drinking a cup of coffee, and we were just talking about how like, I thought I was going to die, and I thought like all this stuff that like we hadn't dared to say to somebody else. And Shelley was sat there going, I think about death every day. I've got this app on my phone. We've talked about it before. I've got the app. And she was just like, my friends think I'm so weird. But I think that was the day that both of us walked away and were just like, this person is one of my people now.
100%. Yeah. You need those people in your life, and it's so important that we have like these events that bring these people together, because you don't know who else is going through it. And like, I mean, everyone feels a bit isolated anyway, but I think particularly as a young person, it is a fairly like unique experience to go through something like this in your 20s and 30s. So you do feel even more alone. And I don't know where I would be genuinely if I hadn't met Kate and been able to kind of like share this with her, and all the stuff that I've been feeling and stuff. So like, it's so important to like find these people.
Absolutely. And you're at a time in your life, aren't you, where there's so many issues, life challenges, you could say, and they're just, and everyone who has a diagnosis of breast cancer has challenges, don't get me wrong, but they can feel more pertinent for younger women. And
I mean, it completely changed the course of Shelley's life. Like she didn't even plan to be in England.
Literally everything about my life has now completely changed. And I mean, obviously young people face challenges anyway, like particularly when you said about like sex and dating, that's a challenge regardless. Like, I mean, I don't know if you ever tried to go on Hinge, but it's not a fun place to be. But particularly after you've like had cancer, it's like doubly hard, and you're just there like, oh my God, what's life?
Yeah, no, exactly. And Shelley, we had, I heard some stories from our younger women's group where, partners have left them because they can't cope with the impact that a cancer diagnosis has brought the family. So I'm absolutely, totally agree with you. And then these women, are looking at dating again with an altered body image and stuff. It's just one example of how things can be. So it's tough.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've learned an awful lot. I think even just doing this season of the podcast and talking to people like yourselves and various other people, I think we've learned an awful lot about our experiences through our treatment and of things to come that have been quite hard challenges to also learn. But I think it's made us much more aware of what support we might want or need individually, or things that we're struggling with more than we thought we were. 'Cause we've had a conversation about fertility with someone. I kind of thought I was okay about that whole thing, and then we had this conversation and it wasn't the most positive conversation in the world. We found out quite a few things that we probably should have been told and weren't. And then that for me went and like resurfaced a whole load of emotions that I knew I'd had at some point, but didn't necessarily realize that maybe I still had underneath. I'd just done that kind of thing where I was like, I can't do anything about it, so we're boxing it up and we're cracking on because there are 101 other problems to be looking at and thinking about. But it was really nice to then be able to be like, this is still a problem for me, and I need to go and talk about this with someone who can just validate that it is completely okay and normal that I am feeling angry and
Absolutely.
all that kind of stuff about this thing. And, you know, if we hadn't have had that conversation, I wouldn't have been feeling angry. Those feelings wouldn't have come back, but I wouldn't have known the information that I now know and all that kind of stuff. It was actually my Macmillan counsellor that I spoke to about it. But it was so nice to have that support, and, you know, her be able to say that, you know, she's spoken to other women as well that are essentially in the same position, like their fertility options are shot at this point. There's no nice way to put it.
Very limited.
Limited. Because you do, like, you just get so isolated, you get so stuck in your head that you're in this alone, even though you know you aren't. And like Shelley said, like, meeting Shelley has been an absolute godsend. I think Shelley's probably been the best unpaid therapist I've ever had. And ever will have.
Maybe I should have been charging.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
It's the idea that you're putting on these events and therefore like bringing all of those women together who may also be in the same position as Shelley and I. Like, it's luck that Shelley lived 2 seconds across the road. Like, that is not a normal circumstance at all, and I don't want people to think that everybody's going to have someone just at the end of their road. But I do think there are more of us within all of our pockets of communities that could be better connected, and it's through events like these that we can create those connections. And even if you find someone that's in, you know, Oxford, which is half an hour away from us here, that's a dance site closer than someone on the other end of the country. But if you've still made a connection, you've still made a connection.
And it's a really real connection, isn't it? And, you know, Kate, when you talk about fertility, it can be so painful because cancer, having a breast cancer diagnosis can rob you of so much. And when it robs you potentially of your options for fertility as well, it's so hard. And one of our sessions at the Younger Women Together is based on fertility. And we don't, you know, I'm not a often lead on that session. I'm not an expert in fertility by any stretch of the imagination, but actually the time that is given to women to share their experiences and offload and feel angry and feel sad, and also maintain an element of hope as well, depending on circumstances, you know. But it's just, I really understand what you're saying. It doesn't take it away, but that opportunity just to offload it is really huge, isn't it?
Your whole cancer treatment is to like keep you alive and keep you here, right? And that's in the immediate, because your threat to life, however severe that may be, is in the immediate and the short term. You survive that, hopefully, and, you know, you're a couple of years out, and then you've still got the rest of your life to be thinking about and getting on with. And I don't necessarily have the feeling myself, but I'm sure there are people that listen to this that do, where you just want to be a mum. Like, thankfully that had already happened for me, not biologically, but it had already happened for me, that need to be a mum had been fulfilled. But if you're going through all of this treatment because you're like, I want to be alive because I want to be a mum, and then you get to the other side of it and that is a less likely or a much harder journey to do at the end of it, it makes you wonder a little bit like, well, what did I do all of that for? And that's not necessarily a problem that is unique to women of Shelley and I's age, because people are having children much younger and also much older than us still at this point. But I think around this age, your late 20s, 30s, early 30s, I think that's the period of time where you're thinking, do I want to start a family? Do I want to be career driven instead? And you're making some of those choices that you're then, I don't want to say stuck with, but you're stuck with for life. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard. Like, Shelley and I can't reverse the last couple of years of our lives.
If only.
My brain just went, oh my God, imagine if you could do that.
Nah, we've come so far, we've learned so much.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it now.
And I think as well, what can make it hard as well is, Kate, you said that you've got, children, a child. Sorry, I don't know how many, but it often comes from a very good place and it means well. But those comments, well, at least you've got one, or there's more to having children, and it's those sort of comments that can be, like I say, well intended, but quite hurtful. So yeah, it's a huge topic, isn't it? It's huge.
What I love about meeting other people that have had cancer is kind of like you were just saying there, like, oh, well-meaning comments. Like, I love when you talk to someone who's had cancer and then you talk about like your pet peeves about what people say to you. And I'm
sure there could be a book written about that.
There genuinely could, and I just love it. And like this sort of stuff that people say when they're like trying to make a joke or like, trying to be well-meaning, and then you get together with someone that's had cancer and you're like, oh, you just rant about it, and it's just the best. Like, just go to the events just to do that. If there's nothing else, at least you have someone to moan to about things.
There is that. And of course, at Breast Cancer Now, we've got our other services like Someone Like Me as well. So that's a peer support a service that's buddies you up with someone who's been in a similar situation. So again, as a younger woman, you can, make contact with the Someone Like Me team, and it's just so valuable. And you can offload there, and and just to be with someone that understands, you just can't underestimate how valuable that is.
So how many people do you think come to these kinds of events?
We just had one in London, actually, and I think there were 35.
Nice.
So generally I think our maximum number is about 45. Again, there's flexibility, but yeah.
That's quite a nice number though, because it's not like super overwhelming. Like, you're not walking into a room and there's like hundreds of people.
No,
and you're like,
exactly. And we think about that very carefully, so that we always have people to greet people as they arrive. So like you say, it's not walking into a big room, and then we have the breakout rooms as well. So obviously the welcome and introduction is all in one room, but we have icebreakers that are fun, and just as soon as people arrive, I think the biggest challenge maybe is just getting through the door. But I would assure you, at Breast Cancer Now, we offer you the warmest welcomes.
Well, that's super nice to know. How do you sign up? Is it just on the website?
Yeah, so on our website at breastcancernow.org, there's a link to services, and you can look in on there. Alternatively, if anyone's got any questions about our services, you can ring our helpline. It's free, it's confidential. The number is 0808 800 6000. And I think what's different about our helpline than maybe, calling breast care nurses in practice? And there is a time and a place to do that. And that's why we work very closely with our friends and our colleagues in clinical practice. But at Breast Cancer Now, we've got time. So we can be on a call for up to an hour. And it's just so valuable to have that space to be able to talk things through and also share our, all the services that we have.
I think it's the timepiece is key, I think, because there's so much of your consultations with your breast care team or whoever it may be are they're so timed, and I don't think I've ever rung my breast care nurse and got her the first time.
No, I always have to leave a message.
And then you become like really aware that like, oh well, they are really busy, and then when they do call you back and you're having that conversation, I've often found myself feeling like I'm rushing that conversation because I'm aware that they have loads of other things to do, and I'm just here maybe having like a slight small meltdown about something and just need some answers. So I think time it's a wonderful gift that I think we could all give each other more of.
Exactly. And at Breast Cancer Now, as I say, that's what we do have. And we have huge respect for our colleagues in clinical practice, like you say, that, they don't have that luxury of time so much, which is why it's such a privilege for us to work so closely together.
So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of other things that Breast Cancer Now can offer? I know you have the Becker app. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course I can. So the Becker app, it's basically described at Breast Cancer Now like a pocket companion to primary breast cancer. So really you can link into that. So say, for example, if you maybe are having experienced side effects of treatment, or you might be wondering how to live a healthier lifestyle, or things like you might be struggling with finding out what a new normal is or adapting to this new normal that so many people describe. So the app is free, and the thing is about it, it's got trustworthy information for anyone who's living with or beyond breast cancer diagnosis, and it does have real life stories from people that have been there too. So again, it can be hugely reassuring.
It's such a valuable resource to have in the day and age we live in as well, because so much is like there's an app for everything.
I'm always on my phone. I'm constantly like scrolling Instagram, so like to have like a genuinely like useful app that you can scroll through is really beneficial.
No, it is. It's really powerful, and it's just easy, isn't it? It's easy. We have a forum at Breast Cancer Now as well, and I think what's good about the forum is that people can share their experiences again and ask questions. And at the forum we have like a monthly chemo thread, so anyone who starts chemo in a particular time can link in with people going through a similar stage. But I think the app is maybe a little bit more accessible, just because it's that pocket companion, But again, the forum can be a huge source of support if that's, if that rocks your boat, so to speak. Not everyone enjoys being on a forum, but if that's, it can be used.
I use the forum to answer questions that I have at the beginning of the year when I was switching from letrozole to tamoxifen, and I was trying to gather as much real world information as I could. Your forums was one of the places I started by searching the keywords and then reading threads upon threads of like people asking the same question, like, I'm switching from this medication to that, what's your experience on it? And it was that helped me make an informed decision, because I could do my research and I was researching from people that were in the boat as well, without having to have like lots of overwhelming conversations and say, hi, I'm Kate, I've got breast cancer, this is the situation I'm in, what's your experience? It was just so nice for it to be there and also see and be like, oh well, maybe that is something I should question, because I think it was on your forums that I found out that I shouldn't be taking sertraline while I was on tamoxifen, because that was not something I was told by my medical team at all.
And I think with the forum, it's, it's different views, isn't it? But what I would say to anyone that uses the forum and has any clinical questions like sertraline and tamoxifen is always to check it out with a healthcare professional, because the advice might actually be a little bit different than what people may think. So you can't underestimate the power of the forum, but you cannot underestimate the skill and expertise of people that are, trained, and pharmacists are just fantastic, with anything to do with medicine. So I would always say that. And I think also with the forum, we often hear from people that say, they call our helpline at Breast Cancer Now and they say, oh, I don't want to take my letrozole because I've heard the side effects are really bad, so I'm not going to take it. But actually, everybody's different as well, so you may have someone that has letrozole and they think, oh, okay, well, this is all right. Yet someone else that can't walk up the stairs because joint pain is so bad. So
that was Shelley and
I think it's and it's so good to discuss it, but you can't underestimate how important it is to talk through those concerns with your healthcare professionals, your treatment team.
It certainly armed me with like a huge list of questions, because I'd been hounding my oncologist for months to change my medication because my quality of life was zilch. And I wasn't happy with that at all. And looking through all of that gave me the list of questions to go and ask, like, if this is something we do I need to think about this? And the sertraline was one of those things that was on there. I was like, I am on quite a high dose of sertraline at the moment, so we need to factor in tapering off. Like, what do you suggest? And he was like, yep, we shouldn't be taking that at the same time, so we need to factor in a 3-month taper off so that then I could start my tamoxifen and things like that. Well, I like information. I like to be armed at every conversation I go to. I like to feel like I know what I'm talking about if it's about my body. I think one of the biggest problems I had from the get-go was being told I had cancer, and that put me on the back foot, because I didn't necessarily expect to go in and be told I had cancer. But if I knew that I was going to go in that room and have cancer, I'd have done all the research I did for every other appointment.
No one knows they're going to be told they have cancer, Kate. It's like the one appointment you cannot prepare for.
No. And a lot of people say about, that loss of control. They're used to having control in their lives, and
you are a control freak a little bit, aren't you? Yeah. I like information, but I like to know what's going on, but I'm also one of those people that, like, I didn't want to be bombarded with information because I didn't need to know, like, the what stage I was. I didn't need to know everything about it because I didn't want to have that, like, fear, I guess. And they say, like, knowledge is power, and I do believe that, but also, like, sometimes it's like ignorance is bliss.
And again, it's a balance, isn't it? You need information so that you can make an informed choice. But I remember the days when I was in practice, and someone might say, well, you didn't tell us that might happen. Well, that's another conversation, because that might happen and that might happen and that might happen. So, information giving is quite, and if you want information, that's different from if you want to not have so much. So it's a real balance, isn't it? And it's a question of talking it through. And, anything like that, you can always call our helpline at Breast Cancer Now. We're not there to tell you what to do, but we can, sometimes by talking it through, people come to their own conclusions and find the answers that are right for them.
I would like to just touch on is the support for men. So obviously Shelley and I are both female, and nearly everyone we have spoken to throughout the podcast's life has been female. It's females coming forward to talk to us about their stories with not just breast cancer, cancer in general. And we are very aware that it's so hard to get men to engage, to talk about a lot of these things, because it's, societally, it's something that comes with an awful lot of emotions. And, there are still stupid conceptions about men shouldn't be showing emotions and all that kind of stuff. And that's just ridiculous. So how do you also offer support to men? Because things like breast cancer, it's the word breast, I guess, is considered more feminine than the male.
Absolutely.
they have breast tissue. Everyone has breast tissue, so it's not a gendered type of cancer.
No need at all. And like you say, Kate, it can be quite a shock when people hear about male breast cancer because they don't think it exists. But because I guess that's because, like you say, they don't consider men as having breasts, but men do have a small amount of breast tissue, and therefore, because of that, men can get breast cancer. It's very rare. About 400 men are diagnosed each year in the UK, and normally we would say that most men who get breast cancer are over the age of 60, although younger men can be affected as well. We encourage everyone to be breast aware, and that includes men. And the most common symptom in a man is actually feeling a lump that's usually painless. But if men, if they notice any new or unusual lumps in the chest area, it's important to get it checked out. It may often be a nothing. It may be benign, we would say, but it's important to get it checked out.
Yeah. I think it. Oh, go on, Shelley.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. yeah, definitely. So I guess in terms of like support for men, is it just kind of like encouragement to kind of get men talking about breast cancer and checking themselves? And
yeah, definitely.
And obviously, like everything you do, like all the helplines and stuff are open to men and non-binary, trans, everybody.
Absolutely. We're here to support a breast cancer now. We're here to support anyone that's affected by a breast cancer diagnosis, irrespective of age, gender, sexuality. We're here for everybody. And for men that do have breast cancer, we do have our Breast Cancer Now online discussion forum that many men find useful. It's a confidential area where men can share tips and information, and and they can talk about what's on their mind. And you heard me mention previously about our Someone Like Me service. Well, that has buddies that have had male breast cancer. So again, men can connect with a trained volunteer who understands what you're going through and has had a similar situation. And because it's really important to find someone that really understands. We've also got our general resources, our Breast Cancer Now information resources, our written information, our helpline, and also our Ask Our Nurse service, which I guess is a written helpline service. So we reply to questions via email or via our digital channels.
I was actually, Breast Cancer Now was probably the place I went to most when I was going for my diagnosis, if I needed to know any information or any like facts or stats. And I think even my breast cancer nurse told me, like, if you're going to do don't Google anything, but if you're going to Google, go to Breast Cancer Now. Like,
absolutely.
Always point to Breast Cancer Now, because it's going to be like helpful and factual, and like it's actually going to tell you what you need to know, rather than Googling something and then it being like, you're definitely going to die. You're like, okay, great.
Yeah, we wouldn't write that. No, and our health information is, it's rigorous. It's, it's reviewed on a regular basis with clinical staff. It goes to external reviewers. So, and that's why we encourage anyone that's, tempted to use Dr. Google. You don't know what's going to be written out there, but at Breast Cancer Now, our healthcare information, be it written in our booklets or on our website, is really reliable.
I do think something we should mention, just seen an email come through about it, is the Breast Cancer Now voices and the opportunity for you as well to give back. So I have given Breast Cancer Now my story, and that has hopefully gone on to live somewhere and help other people as well. But also I think it's monthly. I think I get monthly emails that tell me of opportunities where I can give back as well, and being like people that are doing research trials or research things just to look at information. I think the current one that I had today, I think there was something like the opportunity there to feed back on new documentation that might be coming out,
Absolutely.
Geared towards people of a certain age was the one I was looking at and volunteered myself for today. It's like a full circle support thing. Like,
Yeah, and you know, you've just really summed up the ethos of breast cancer now, that it's not about as an organization saying, well, you must do that and you must do that. It's about, well, what do people want who are affected by breast cancer? What's important to them? That's why, you know, we have our campaigns team, our policy team, and the Voices are quite an incredible team. The work that they do to ensure at Breast Cancer Now, we really understand from the people that have been affected by breast cancer. And a lovely example of this that sort of shows us all working together is that one of the health content editors and myself were updating our health information on younger women with breast cancer, and the health editor contacted Voices to make sure that, you know, there were quotes that really sort of resemble the written word, and it really complements it. But there's so important, and it just really shows the power of teamwork and everybody's voice, you know. So I thank you so much for bringing that up. I just think the Voices are incredible, and yeah, very valued part of our organisation here at Breast Cancer Now.
I think it's amazing as well to feel like there are opportunities for someone who's been through treatment and is going through treatment. It feels invaluable to have the opportunity to feed into something that will go on to help someone else's life who is going to be so dramatically affected as well, because you don't want to go through this and then just live in a silo. There is no denying that you, to some extent, can't escape what you've been through. Like going through a cancer diagnosis, going through the whole treatment journey changes you as a person. You know, people lose physical parts of themselves, mental parts of themselves, and they rediscover new parts to themselves as well. Like there are both negative and positive outcomes to everything that we go through. And I think once you've got the right headspace, and if you are the kind of person that wants to give back, knowing that there is a space to go and do that within an atmosphere that is, you know, informational, is the right people, you know, because anyone can sit there and write something up on the internet and you know, do all of that kind of stuff, and someone could read it and go and believe it. But I think for me, being able to certainly give back in this way by being part of that Voices program helps me feel so much like joy and happiness and all that kind of stuff. I'm helping to enable you to support people like me that are to come and have been, because I've used your services and now I'm giving back to your services, and it just
and do you know, Kate, a lot of our volunteers who they're just again so valuable. You heard me mention that our Younger Women Together events, we have volunteers. Our Younger Women Together online, we have volunteers. At the Moving Forward courses, we have volunteers, and they're immersed in the work that we do because they do understand, and it's about us working together. And for many of our volunteers, that giving something back is so valuable to them because they feel worthy, they feel, you know, really, really valued and appreciated. And that can be all part of the healing, I guess. So, yeah, we're very, very lucky here at Breast Cancer Now to have such wonderful volunteers.
Yeah, I think you must get the same feeling, Shelley, when you do all your Copperfield stuff.
I do. I love it. I love volunteering. I love like advocating for breast cancer. Like it kind of makes you, it is kind of like full circle, isn't it? Like you've gone through it, you've used these services, and then you give back. And yeah, it makes me feel like I'm doing like good with something that was just like, breast cancer just thrust upon you. And then you think like, well, now at least it's like, it's worth something because I'm doing something like really good with it and I'm helping these amazing charities. So yeah, I think like volunteering and, you know, having those features as well, like being able to volunteer for like these charities is really important and really like fulfilling for a lot of people.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So how can people find you? So obviously you've got the Breast Cancer Now website.
I've got our website at breastcancernow.org, Instagram and Facebook. And our helpline, of course, 0808 800 6000. And we've got Ask Our Nurse service as well. And that all details about that can be found on our website. All our support services can be found on our website as well. And we have, some of your listeners might want to know that we have things like Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, we have Speakers Lives. So if there's a particular topic that you're particularly interested in, say, for example, we were talking about fertility earlier, and we've got a Speakers Live coming up this week actually on fertility. So there's lots of information, and we have our YouTube channel. So Breast Cancer Now has a channel on YouTube. So all our, our chats can be found on there. So, but if any doubt or you're not sure about anything, then ring our helpline and we'd be only too happy to take your call. The helpline's open 9 till 4, Monday to Friday, and on Saturday 9 till 1. And many people actually really value being able to speak to one of our team on a Saturday morning. And out of those hours, we have a voicemail service. So I often say to people, if they struggle in the middle of the night, well, give us a ring and leave us a message. And we'll ring you back in the morning.
Absolutely.
People just value that, I think,
As well, because you just forget, like chemo brain and brain fog. Like you'll wake up the next morning and you won't remember what you want to ask. So like, just call up at 2 a.m. and ask your question, and then you can...
Exactly. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting to us. It's been so interesting and so lovely to speak to you as well. And just thank you for like all the work that you do as well.
Well, thank you. On behalf of Breast Cancer Now, thank you for having us with you. It's been really lovely, and for the amazing work that you're doing too.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, stop it. We're just a tiny little podcast.
Yeah, I love working together. Collaboration, it's most wonderful, isn't it?
It really is,
It really
yeah.
is.
If you want to share your story, we'd love to hear from you. Whether you've had cancer, you know someone that's had cancer, or you just love listening to our voices. Slide into our DMs on Instagram at onelump_or2.
Or email us at onelump or2pod@gmail.com.
See you next week.
Bye!